And I forgot to do the countdown, but welcome back to episode number 86 of Raise the Banner podcast. We are one episode away from the Rob Gronkowski podcast. Speaking of Rob Gronkowski, he is supposedly retiring as a Patriot soon. And that is what Ben is wearing. You got to wear that for the next episode, I guess, as well.
Sure do.
But yeah, welcome back. It's been 2 weeks. We were off last week. We were just a little bit busy to record. Ben prioritizing family and work as usual because he's a piece of shit. I was a little busy. But we're back.
Trying to buy a house.
Yeah. We're back. We have plenty to talk about the New England Patriots season preview episode. Season 3 preview. Season 3 preseason game is tomorrow, Friday,
Thursday.
Yeah, tomorrow's
Thursday. Yeah, sorry, I was off Monday, so today doesn't feel like Wednesday.
Yeah, so it is tomorrow. They are without, I think, 5 wide receivers projected.
Yeah, don't. It's going to be a who's who of guys who will not have a job. So don't expect.
So it will
high
be
quality football Thursday.
I do want to jump right into the Patriots, and we'll start on the offensive side of the ball. What are your overall thoughts so far, what you've seen offensively? Before we kind of really get into details there offensively, what's your early thoughts there and how you see things playing out so far and how you project things early in the season?
So offense has been fine. It's one of those things where kind of is what it is. Sorry, I didn't like the light right over my shoulder, so I thought I would just go with a regular background or a virtual background. The offense is what it is. Obviously the preseason started with Travion Henderson's somewhere between a 99 and 100 yard kick six. They said it was 100, but both of his feet were in the field of play, so I'm not going to give him the full 100 yards. But certainly an invigorating play to start off the preseason. Speaks to his ability to really be a home run threat in this offense. Teams are really going to have to account for him in a multitude of ways. You really can't just key in on, if he's on the field, you really can't just key on a one type of play. Whether it doesn't matter if they're shotgun or not. He could either be in for a pass blocking scheme. He could be in to run the ball. He could be running a pattern out of the backfield. Which is really nice. We haven't had that type of a running back in the backfield in quite a while. James White wasn't quite that because typically you wouldn't see James White line up in like an I formation or with a fullback. That just wasn't really his thing, but Henderson can do that. So it's nice to see that he's got versatility. Drake May is what it is. His stats I think in the preseason are kind of useless. But his numbers are not fantastic. I was listening to Doug Kyde and Michael Hurley on their Past Chat podcast last night. Talked about he's something like 7 of 12 for 58 yards. According to Pro Football Focus, he only has 1 turnover-worthy play, although Hurley and Kyde seemed to question that. They thought it should be at least 2. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. But, whatever, it is what it is. I don't really look at stats in the preseason. I think they're pretty useless. I like to see how guys look, in their decision-making process, their actual athleticism, which is why I have no issues with Travion Henderson. He looks incredibly explosive. Or guys like Eftham Chisholm, who little bit of a grain of salt with how he's played this year so far in the preseason, but he's fighting for every yard. He knows that he really has to fight tooth and nail for a roster spot, and I feel like he's got one. I really don't think that he would be sitting out tomorrow if there was any question of him making the roster, because he'd want every opportunity to make the team. So in that respect, I kind of like what I see. Will Campbell has been mauling some people here and there. I have some minor concerns. He doesn't seem like the type of guy who is going to succeed much against guys who like to bull rush, just because, I think that's where you're going to see the arm length issue, if you want to call it that, manifest itself, where, guys with longer arms on the edge are going to get into his body quicker than he can get into theirs. So guys who are bull rush might be more problematic than speed guys who are just going to try to beat him around the edge or beat him with a spin move to the inside. Um, his footwork is very, very good, which is where I think he's going to really succeed. But loved him on those, toss crack plays off to the side in that first preseason game. Admittedly, so I didn't see any of the Minnesota game. I unfortunately was in the armpit of America, aka New Jersey, over the weekend, so I did not see the Vikings game. Fun activities, but I will never go back to New Jersey as long as I live, unless I absolutely have to. But yeah, I mean, he looks good, pulling and in the run blocking. So I'm certainly excited. The offensive line probably is the biggest question mark if you're going to pick like an individual unit on the offense. I think the offensive or on the team, not just offense, but I think the offensive line is the biggest question mark. So hopefully they're looking good tomorrow. Don't really know who's going to play, but hopefully they look good so that they can prep for uh, the Las Vegas Raiders here in about 10 days. But yeah, I mean, so far so good. But again, preseason stats are meaningless. But I am liking what I'm seeing out of some of the guys in terms of how they're playing, and hopefully that translates well into week one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I haven't been overly impressed, but it's also hasn't been any bit close of what we had in previous off seasons,
It's
to
true.
say the least. And so I guess that's a positive. And that's the bar is just so low. Um, that's not necessarily a good, well, not necessarily. That is not a good thing. That the bar is so low that we view it that way. Uh, as a whole, Drake May he looks better supposedly in joint practices and practices in general than he really has in the preseason games. Uh, is that him kind of just not getting up and not taking the preseason games overly seriously? Is it McDaniel's being more just overall conservative in the preseason games than he is being in joint practices and stuff like that? I don't know. There's a lot to go into those questions. Uh, but in the preseason games, it's been nothing really has been special there.
Nope.
So there is a little bit of worry in that end of things. So going into week one, you're not as like your confidence level with May isn't as high as you'd hope it is going into week one. You still believe in the player, and your confidence as a whole in the guy and what he can be is still there. But in terms of like immediately being that guy in week one, it's a little bit down right now. Uh, Offensive line wise, Will Campbell, PFF wise, like you look at that number, you take it with a grain of salt. But run game wise, he's good. The guy can really move. He's a mauler on the move. As a pass blocker, he's going to have some hiccups. That's as expected. But he, as a whole, I think he's going to be fine there. I think he's going to be able to hold his own. The rest of the O line, we'll see. I think Ben Brown is going to end up winning the center job. And I think that's just because he's a better pass blocker. Um, Plain and simple. He's not that great against the run, but he's a better pass blocker. Uh, Morgan Moses, they've really just been basically giving him the summer off.
Yep.
They're not really worried about getting him, a lot of snaps in the preseason and in training camp. They know he'll be ready to go. They're just trying to keep him healthy. Uh, Same thing with on Wenu. Like he'll be ready to go. Well, you say that, and he showed up overweight the last year and stuff like that. But and then the left guard position's a big TBD. You don't know who's going to be the starter there. Whether it's going to be, well, I guess in theory Ben Brown could be at left guard. Will it be? Uh, oh my God,
Jared Wilson.
Jared Wilson. I almost said Gerald Green. The Celtics, but Jared Wilson. Um, you don't know. I mean, Cole Strange seems to be falling behind there. Um, you don't know if it could be, the guys that we haven't really talked about. Caden Wallace has been working there. Layden Robinson has been working there. You really don't know who's going to end up being the guy at left guard right now. Uh, so as a whole, there's a little bit of uncertainty there. Um, but I think going at least comparatively, again, the bar's a little low, but the offensive line looks notably better than it was last year, obviously, especially at the two tackle positions. And the bigger bright spot has so far in this offense, pleasant surprise, has been Marcus Bryant. Seventh round pick this year, ton of experience. He's been playing at left and right tackle. He looks like he might be locking in the swing tackle position for the Patriots. And that's big because it allows them to potentially, not have to rely on Demontre Jacobs, who I can't say this enough is just horrible. He is so bad.
Very.
Vidarian Lowe, I think they keep him. I think they keep him early into the season. It will be tough because it's going to be, they got five starting a line. If they keep Bryant's basically a lock at this point. If they keep Lowe, that's seven, right?
Yeah,
That means that
I think they'll keep 9 or 10 guys on the offensive line.
I think they absolutely will keep at least two more interior linemen. So that says, all right, so they have to keep a backup center. So Bradbury's a lock. I think Bradbury's a lock, so that's eight.
Yeah.
Ben Brown's a lock. If Ben Brown's starting, Bradbury is the backup. So Bradbury's a lock. And then I think I would say Caden Wallace is a lock. I think Caden Wallace is not going to just dump him this early into his career. And so that will leave that's nine. Do they hold a 10th? Whether it's Layden Robinson, Cole Strange, are you moving on from Cole Strange type of thing? I think that they might keep 10 early on. Mike Reese brought up in an article, I think it was earlier today. He thinks that there's a chance that they only keep two tight ends and three running backs in an effort to be able to keep maybe seven wide receivers and 10 offensive linemen.
Yeah. So, I mean, depending on what they do, I probably should have done a better job counting. Because when I sent you my roster projection earlier today, I had 11 offensive linemen on that list, and I don't think they keep 11. Um, to me, I think I'm higher on Bradbury at center than you are. I think that the offensive line to me, like gun to my head, if I had to pick going left to right, it's going to be Campbell, Wilson, Bradbury, Onwenu, and Moses. I think that's your starting
It's a toss
offensive line,
at center.
which is right. But I think that depending on what they want to do at center, I think the only difference there is that Ben Brown's your center and Bradbury's not there. But I think the other four guys are pretty much locked in. I know that they gave Jared Wilson the start against, oh God, who'd they open up with? The Commanders. He got the start at left guard versus the Commanders and looked awesome. And then Ben Brown got the start against Minnesota. Again, didn't see much of that game. So, um, you know, basically an NA. I don't really have much of an opinion on Ben Brown from that game because I didn't watch it. But those to me are the two guys that are basically battling for two of your left guard and your center. I would say that those two spots are down to Bradbury, Brown, and Wilson. And again, like you said, Brown's an upgrade in the passing game, whereas Bradbury's a better run blocker. So we'll see. But I think that Wilson very well might be locked into that left guard spot. And that'll be kind of that. Hopefully, will not be, but could very well be a revolving door. We'll see. But I think from an offensive line standpoint, it's those five. I think that Marcus Bryant, Vidarian Lowe, and Caden Wallace are safe bets. and that's 8 guys right there. So that leaves 2 guys. Um, you know, do you keep a Cole Strange? He's kind of on the outside looking in. Um, so unless you just want extra interior guard depth, you can go with Strange because you really don't have great guard depth in general, right? Like Onwenu's very good right guard, but then you have question marks at left guard. You don't know who your backup is. So could they keep Cole Strange? Maybe, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if they move on from him. Because he's basically third in line for the left guard spot, so maybe he's just a depth emergency guy. Um, I think we know what Vidarian Lowe is at this point. So I don't know. There's question marks there, but I think that you could very well see like 9 for sure and possibly 10 offensive linemen kept.
Yep, yep. And then moving on to, running back position, I think is kind of set. You got the top three guys: Henderson, Stevenson, Gibson.
Yep.
I would be surprised if they keep a fourth beyond that. Hasty is kind of the main option behind him. I just don't really see it. And then the wide receiver core is obviously the big conversation. Offensively. You got Booty, Williams, Diggs, and Douglas are the lock, core four. Chisholm has seemingly creeped into that territory of being essentially a lock, kind of in both of our views, where he's basically crept into that lock territory.
Yep.
We would both be very surprised if he doesn't make it at this point.
Yes.
Uh,
So that's
Matt
5.
Collins. Matt Collins is a similar view. I would be
Yep.
very surprised if he does not make it. That gives you 6 wide receivers, right? So you ask the question, do they keep a seventh? Generally, you do not really go over 6 receivers. Occasionally, they will keep a seventh if it's a special teams type guy. Javon Baker does offer some special teams. He works as a gunner and in a punt return coverage and stuff like that. Polk does not. Bourne does not. Bourne is dealing with an injury. Bourne is cuttable. You save money. If you cut Bourne, you save money. If you trade Bourne, Polk, you could probably garner maybe a late round pick if you dump him. Baker, maybe you could do the same. Do you see them keeping one of those 3 to make 7 guys? And if so, which of the 3 do you see keeping?
I mean, I lean Polk only because I feel like of those 3 guys, he's the most talented option. Um, so I was reading Boston.com earlier today. They have um, so they have the Patriots keeping 7 wide receivers. Um, Diggs, Douglas, Williams, Booty, Hollins, Chisholm, and Baker. Baker is being their 7th guy. Um, and so we'll see. It really all depends on the versatility. Baker kind of concerns me because he's got some character issues off the field. The talent level is there. I know you and I both really liked him coming out of UCF in the 24 draft. Um, I just, it's tough for me to feel like they're going to move on from Jalen Polk a year after taking him with a high second round pick. Like that feels like an awful short leash. I realized that he didn't really do much of anything last year. Was pretty disappointing. So we'll see. To me, it's either Baker or Polk. Whoever they think has the most upside and the most versatility, because that's really what you would do. Is if you're going to keep a 7th guy, it's because he can do things in multiple positions. Based on the skill set, like I could see Chisholm having a role in the special teams a little bit as a punt returner. He has that shifty, elusive feature that not a ton of other guys have on the offense. So, I mean, the safe guys feel like the 6 we just mentioned, and then you could probably flip a coin on Polk or Baker. I lean Polk because you invested a more premium draft pick into a guy, and I think there's talent there, albeit he's not gonna I feel like he's not as high of a ceiling guy, but I don't know, just the character issues with Baker scare me off. And the idea of the Patriots a year after taking a guy 37th overall moving on from him is, I'm not mentally ready to wrap my brain around that concept yet.
I mean, I get it. I do. My problem with that, though, is, I don't believe in letting past mistakes affect your future, and don't let past mistakes create future mistakes, right? And so if I don't want to look at Polk and say, well, we took him 37th, and so that should make me want to keep him more than a guy like Baker. I look at them individually, and I kind of say, Polk, even if he might have that the early draft pick attached to him, where does he fit into this offense playing time wise? And it's like he's a more of an inside guy ish. Is he going to play over Diggs? No. Is he going to
No.
play over Kyle Williams? No. Is he going to play over Douglas? No. Is he going to play over Mac Hollins? No. Chisholm? No. Like, they're all more on the inner side guys, and he's not a deep ball guy. At least Baker brings that down the field upside, go up and get it type of potential onto the field. Now Baker brings his worries to the field, obviously,
Right.
and he is far from any bit of a guarantee. And so it's not like a slam dunk either way. But I just look at it in the sense of like I'm just sick of Polk. I didn't like him from pre-draft. I know you liked him more than me, and I liked Baker. I had Baker higher than Polk in the pre-draft, and so I'd rather keep a guy like Polk because I think I think he's a better talent than Polk. I really do. I think that's what it comes down to for me. I think that's also where we differ a little bit. And so I want to see what Baker can maybe flash here and maybe bring to the table. And like I said, he can play the special teams game. And so if you're going to be the seventh wide receiver on a team, you have to contribute to the special teams. And so if he can at least do that.
Polk doesn't have the skill set to be a punt returner or a gunner, or he doesn't have that.
Exactly. And that's like, so that's where it's like, on top of saying, who do we want, projecting who is most likely to make it, I don't see how Polk makes the team at this point. I really don't. I think it's like a lock that he doesn't make it at this point.
Yeah. And I won't say that I would keep him solely because he was the 37th overall pick last year. But and I understand that it's not the same regime, but the Patriots also held on to N'Keal Harry for about 3.5 years too long.
That's because Belichick's a stubborn asshole. Okay, so Belichick's is a perfect example of letting past mistakes affect future mistakes. He's a stubborn asshole that refuses to admit mistakes,
right?
And he let it hang around and haunt the team for 3 years.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, when's cutdown day?
A week from yesterday, 26th.
So it's next Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll see, right? They'll get the vast majority of the day. I think it's 4 or 5 o'clock. They have to have the rosters cut down. So I mean, I think a lot will be telling on who's the first team offense to come out and play tomorrow night. I don't expect to see much of Drake May. Maybe they give him a couple of series just so he doesn't have a week and a half off or 2 weeks off, I guess, because they just played on Saturday. So I could see them having him go out and just get a couple of series in just to have like just a few more series of game action before they start preparations next week for the Raiders. But I would expect to see a lot of guys like Baker, Polk, Hollins. We know Chisholm's not going to play. Um, I would expect to see some of those guys. And so we'll see who kind of rolls out with that first team offense. Usually the guys that don't play the last preseason game, it more often than not, those guys feel like the team feels like those are the guys that are battling for, final spots, depth positions, figuring out where, what you can do, where you can play. Obviously Travion Henderson's not going to return kicks all the time. Like they got to figure out who's going to do that. They're not going to want Douglas returning punts and kicks, so they got to figure that spot out. So I'll be interested to see like who goes out the first time the offense hits the field, because I think that's going to tell you what players are on the bubble on the offense, right? Obviously, the guys that are coming in third, fourth quarter are, basically going to get cut or traded. Maybe if somebody has an absolute dynamite, series second half, maybe they find their way onto a team if somebody's hurt. And it's like, oh, well, we can put this guy on short-term IR just so we can keep this guy and avoid him going through the waiver process and not getting him on a practice squad situation. The position that offensively that I am mildly intrigued with is what are they going to do with Westover? I don't see a scenario where they keep a third tight end unless they really think that he can fill the fullback spot well. He's really the only guy that would fit that role, and your third tight end doesn't really play anyway. So that's kind of a question mark. The Boston.com article I was reading earlier has him being kept presumably as a guy who can be your emergency third tight end and a fullback kind of guy. So that might be interesting to see how they play that out. Yeah, I mean, I don't really expect to see much in terms of of Drake May tomorrow, but in terms of Polk and Baker, maybe Hollins plays. I mean, Hollins hasn't done enough this preseason to make me have an opinion one way or the other. He's cheap, so theoretically, if they're like, oh hey, like we're gonna get the same thing out of Hollins that we do out of Polk, and we view them as the same talent, which is basically like the fifth wide receiver who's a possession guy. Maybe that's what they do, but we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hollins is pretty close to. Well, I think they really like Hollins.
Yeah.
I think he's a pretty reliable guy. He's like he's an ideal like wide receiver 4 or 5 guy. Like he's a pretty reliable receiver. He's not he's not great, but he's not like terrible. He's a pretty reliable guy to have as your 4 or 5.
Yeah.
The problem
I'm just saying, like, he's cheap. So if things go horribly wrong for him and really, really well for a guy like Polk, like I could see them moving on just because there's not a huge financial commitment to him. But I would agree. Like Hollins would have to fall off the face of the earth. But we'll see what happens tomorrow with that last wide receiver spot. See if they keep a 7th.
Yeah. Moving to the defensive side of the ball. The defensive line, there isn't a ton really to talk about. You got like the main starters, Barmore, Milton, Keon White, Harold Landry, Chason. Jennings seems to be on the trade block there.
Yep.
You got Spillane kind of is locked in as a starter. You got Gibbons, who is kind of emerging is going to be a guy that's going to have a good amount of playing time at the linebacker position. Mapu's seemingly moved to the linebacker position. Who else am I forgetting at that linebacker?
Well, it really depends, right? So depending on what you like, how you read into a depth chart. So White, Jennings, Landry, Chason are basically edge guys that are listed as outside linebacker edge guys.
Yeah.
But like a couple guys, like I think Christian Ellis probably has a spot on this team as a
Yeah,
linebacker.
Ellis is basically, I think, a lock.
Um, I do like I like the upside of Braden Swinson out of LSU. He's kind of
He's
like he's like to me he's like on the bubble, but he's on the right side of the bubble to me. I think he's just on the inside looking out as opposed to being on the outside looking in. And then there's a question of what do you do with Jelani Tavai? Like, is he safe at this point? Like, I don't because they invested money in Robert Spillane, they invested money in Harold Landry, they invested money in Gibbons, who are all like two of those, like Gibbons and Landry are both former Vrabel guys. Um, you know, I would imagine that if they don't find trade partners for guys like Duggar and Jennings, like those are guys that make the team if you can't move them. Like I don't think that if they can't move Anthony Jennings, they're gonna cut him. Like that to me doesn't feel like an intelligent decision. Um, so who knows? But yeah, I mean, so like for me, like the guys that I think are safe at least so defensive line. These are the six guys that I have on the D line. Barmore, Williams, Farmer, Farms, Pecco, and Tonga seem like your defensive line. Pecco was the last guy that I threw in there. Those other five guys I feel like are safely in. Um, and then for linebacker slash edge guys, Keon White, Jennings, if they don't trade him, Spillane, Ellis, Landry, Chason, Tavai, Gibbons, Swinson, and Mapu. So Mapu went from safety to linebacker, or is he converting to a safety from the linebacker spot?
converting the linebacker.
That's what I thought. Okay. There was a depth chart I read earlier in the season that hadn't updated it yet, so I forgot if he was linebacker to safety, safety to linebacker. I mean, that kind of feels like I don't think there's anybody on the bubble at linebacker. I feel like I feel like the linebackers are kind of set. Like there's nobody like they didn't other than Swinson, they didn't draft. I don't think they drafted a linebacker besides Swinson. And he's more of an edge guy. He's not an up the middle guy. So like your middle guys are Spillane and I mean Ellis, I guess. I don't know who who are your starting interior linebackers if the season was tomorrow, besides Roberts. But like who's the other guy next to Spillane?
Christian Ellis.
He's yeah. So it's like it's Ellis, like maybe Tavai's the other inside guy. Um, so yeah, for me, linebacker doesn't feel like I don't think there's any question marks of any kind in terms of
There's
your
not a lot.
linebacker.
There's not a ton of question marks defensively. Like there's
No,
really not. I mean, even
to me there's
even
two.
secondary.
There's two question marks on defense, and it's do you keep Marcus Jones as a nickel slash slot corner? Because obviously you have Davis on one side and Gonzo on the other. So the question is, who's your nickelback? Is it Marcus Jones? And the reason I say
Well, I
that,
think you're going to keep him, but he may not be a full time starter.
no, but here's and this is where like so the two go hand in hand. So this is where like the nickelback is a question because if Kyle Duggar isn't traded, then maybe Marcus Jones doesn't get kept because you can have Peppers and Duggar as your free safety, strong safety, and then Craig Woodson more or less becomes your hybrid nickelback slash run defensive, like basically like a box safety almost. It really that's what those are my question marks on defense. Not necessarily. It's basically who's going to get kept, not like what are they going to do at this position.
I think that they'll keep Marcus Jones regardless because I think he's good enough as a corner to keep him as depth. I think Alex Austin might be that bigger presence. And we've talked about it before when Andrew Callahan came on here. He talked about the presence of Rabel preferring a bigger guy on the inside. Austin has worked both outside and inside with Davis and Gonzalez being injured throughout the training camp. He's had plenty of time to work out inside and outside, and he has impressed. So
For
I think when everybody's healthy, he might be getting some good amount of time on the inside, which will push Marcus Jones to the bench.
correct.
Marcus Jones will seemingly then be the fourth guy, and he'll mix in, like he'll certainly mix in. But I think at that point you keep him because there's always going to be injuries, right? Carlton Davis misses like 3 or 4 games every year,
Yeah.
like every
So
single.
the other guy to really keep an eye on. I like what you said about Alex Austin, bigger guy. He's like 6'1", 195, 6'1", 200. He's in that range, which is not to pick on Marcus Jones for things he has no control over. I just think that especially over the last handful of years, with inside guys at the NFL, the wide receiver position in the NFL getting bigger, the days of your 5'8", 5'9", 5'10" slot guy are kind of dwindling, right? Like the Lad McConkeys of the world, who's 6', 6'1", Zay Flowers, who's 5'10", 5'11", like those slot Z guys, hybrid type players are becoming more and more popular. Marcus Jones is listed at 5'8", which means he's not actually 5'8".
Oh, he's tiny, tiny.
So I think that the size limitations might push him out. So like you have Alex Austin. The other guy that I'm interested in, the phrase that I heard last night on with Hurley and Kide is that he's always around the ball, is DJ James, who they picked up from the Seahawks in free agency. Not free agency, not from the Seahawks. He was drafted by the Seahawks last year. Came over to the Pats. He's also a bigger guy. He's 6 foot, 185, 190.
I'm on record pre-draft that I really liked him as like a 4th-round guy. I think he was from Auburn. I
Yeah.
really liked his ball skills, and I was shocked that he got cut. And yeah, no. I think he's a guy that's going to be. I think he could be their 5th corner behind those top 4.
Yeah. So to me, I look at it and go, I think that DJ, like if you're going to look at if you look at the depth chart, so Davis and Gonzo opposite each other. Alex Austin, I think, is good to go, and then it comes down to, okay, like who do you have at 4th and 5th? Nickelback. I think Marcus Jones is like a depth keep, but I think you look at a guy like DJ James as that number 4 corner, who bigger physical guy, good ball skills. I think that he kind of fits that mold. And
If
then of
Marcus
course,
Jones cost like decent money, if he was only a second deal, I would say they might just decide to go cheaper and younger. But where he's still on like a pretty cheap deal, like it's like, all right, you might as well keep the guy that's like a little bit experienced. He's still a pretty solid player, solid corner that can play inside.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I see those 5 being, and I would have to look deeper. I don't know if they probably will keep a 6th.
Yeah, so I have them keeping 9 defensive backs, which is inclusive of safeties. And basically everybody that we've already talked about, with the additions of Jalen Hawkins as an additional safety. And then I think because of his special teams ability, I think Brendan Schuler also makes the team.
Yes. Oh, School is making it. Duggar, we'll see.
I don't have Duggar on here, only because I think that somebody is going to, like, if they're actively shopping Kyle Duggar, I think that he's good enough that the Patriots can find a trade target for him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's overly expensive. I know he just signed an extension, but I think relative to,
it's like 11 million a year for a new team.
Yeah, let me just see. So he signed a 4-year, $58 million deal that started last season.
What's the cash value?
So for 2025, where's his cash? So it's 11 million this year, and then it's 12.5 next year, 13.5 in 2027. His cap hits are even still reasonable.
But it's cash value for new teams.
Yeah. So, and the cap hits aren't too bad. So we'll see. Let me just see if they
So at safety, it's probably Hawkins, Peppers, Woodson. I think Pettis probably makes it. I think he almost has. I think he makes it. I mean, he had a pretty solid year last year. He's been around the. He's just, I think, a pretty solid guy that can play special teams, do a little bit of everything. Uh, I don't know if a guy like Isaiah Bolden has what it is.
He's not a safety though.
No, I know. I'm just talking about like defensive backs in general.
I mean, yeah, and it depends on what, and it depends. Well, and the other thing is, it depends on what role you want to put Schooler in, because he's listed as a strong safety.
I just put him in as a special teamer.
So safeties, assuming. So I would say Kyle Duggar makes the team unless they can find a trade partner. So if he's traded, you're looking at Peppers, Hawkins, Woodson, and then, I mean, I know Pettis has some history here, so he probably has the inside edge over a guy like Marcus Epps. But that's all you have on your roster. Like, they only have 6 safeties between all. Well, they have 7 if you include Craig Woodson. So, I mean, if Duggar doesn't get traded, then you're probably looking at Duggar, Peppers, Hawkins, Woodson as your, and then Schooler is a depth safety and a special teamer. I kind of really only see Pettis making it as a safety if they do trade Duggar. But I mean, and I don't have him on my roster projection only because I went a little heavy.
So looking at this projection, some names that we forgot: Jeremiah Farms, Joshua Farmer. Joshua Farmer is probably making it. I mean, I forgot about him. He's like a 4th round pick. 5th round pick. Yeah, I think.
Well, I'd have to go look. So I think Farmer's safe because they've traded up for him, so they clearly like him. I mean, unless I mean, I haven't heard his name.
Kobe Minor, the guy that they took in. I think he was he Mr. Irrelevant?
I believe so. He's not making the team.
I mean, this is the Boston Herald with Doug Kyde. This is your boy Kai that you keep talking about.
Yeah, he was. It's funny because last night I didn't catch the end of him and Hurley's show, but on Sports Hub today, Zoe and Beetle were referencing it, and they were kind of like, they talked about how really the only question marks on the defense / special team side of the ball were who's your kicker, and I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. They talked about what guys from the 2025 draft class are question marks to make the roster. And they only referenced Borregales as a question mark to make the roster, and Kobe Minor. Like, where does he fit into things? On their show last night, Hurley and Kyde have Parker Romo winning the kicker job and Borregales getting cut. So
yeah, I mean, we could quickly do the special teams. Like, I want to quickly make a comment on that. Like, it's tough because you don't want to basically throw a miss on a draft pick this early into the mix, but I just want the position to be filled, right? I don't care how the kicker position ends up a position that's filled and is a position that we don't have to worry about, and is a position that the guy plays well. If that's Romo, so be it. Like, as long as Romo comes in and is a good kicker for us, I really no one's gonna be throwing a hissy fit that we pick Borregales 5 years from now if Romo's still kicking for us. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like you ideally Borregales comes in and like he's really good and the pick is worth it and he makes drafting him worth it. But in the end, as long as the position is worth it, then as long as the position is filled and the player is good, I don't care that much. Like, just
and I think kicker. I mean, I'm not to beat this horse to death because we're talking about kicker, for God's sakes. I think it's truly a coin flip. The thing that sticks out to me is, and I forget how far back the kick was. I want to say it was in the neighborhood of like 50, low 50 yards. Um, the shank that Borregales had,
It was
um,
57.
50, was it 57? Oh, I thought it was like 50 or
Yeah.
51, but whatever. I mean, anyway, um, that was pretty rough. That was, shankopotamus, you know,
Yeah.
so that's kind of tough. So like, so who really knows? I know when we were looking at, doing our copious amount of mock drafts prior to April's draft, we had looked at the Patriots having kicker as a position of need as a late round pick. Borregales was kind of regarded as the top kicker in the draft, although like if you looked at his numbers at Miami, he didn't kick a ton. And his one bugaboo was he's not good from distance. And like not like distance. Like he had a couple of like decent kicks from like 55 plus, but I guess from like 50 to 57 yards, he's like terrible. So I mean, again, as long as the position is good and we're getting somebody who you know, can kick from
I mean, the
a,
solution's
a
pretty
respectable
easy. So
distance.
if you have
And
like a 52-yarder, just get a false start and go back.
yeah, you can just pull a Bill Belichick until they start until the other team declines the false starts.
You get like a 53-yarder, you purposely go make it a 58-yarder, and the other team's like, no,
Yep.
it's too close.
Um, so just to go to, I just happened to bring up Patriots Wire, which is USA Today roster projection. They have 11 defensive line / edge guys. No notable cuts. So basically all the guys that we talked about: Williams, Barmore, White, Tonga, Farmer, Landry, Chason, Swinson. They have Truman Jones making the team, Anthony Jennings, and Jeremiah Farms all on the roster. Um, and shockingly, they have Marty Mapu not making the team. He's one of the linebacker cuts. They have Spillane, Ellis, Gibbons, and Tavai. They have them keeping 5 corners: Gonzo, Davis, Jones, Austin, and James. Um, and then Peppers, Hawkins, Woodson, Schuler, and Epps as your safeties. Duggar and Pettis not making the team. It doesn't specify what they're going to do with them, just that they're not going to make the team. But the issue with Duggar, and I want to say this started relatively early. He started to get swapped out of the first team reps with Craig Woodson pretty early. So um, I don't think there's going to be a ton of interesting stuff to watch in terms of the defensive side of the ball. Couple of positional battles, but I'll be curious to see what that first defense looks like. Well, when they take the field tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know exactly who will be sitting out tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know if May's playing or anything like that. I'm not sure.
Well, we know that
What?
there's 6 guys that have already been. No, I don't want to say ruled out, but we've known for a few days that there's like 6 or 7 guys who are definitely not playing. Like Chisholm's on that list. Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, um,
Bourne, Polk,
Chisholm,
Baker.
Born. Yeah, like yeah. Oh, Polk and Baker are not playing.
Yep, they're both out.
Interesting. Okay.
Um,
Well,
yeah, so
that
I don't expect Henry to play. I don't expect probably Hooper to play. If May's out there, it will probably be again for a max of a couple series. I was a little disappointed that he didn't play a little bit longer last game. Like you, I didn't get to see too much of it. I watched a little bit. I was at a family party. I watched a little bit on my phone, um, but I really didn't get to watch a ton of it. I watched a little bit of it. I recorded it, but I didn't watch like it in an entirety. Uh, you know, it, I wish he played a little bit longer. It's tough going from playing, 2, 3, 4 non-intense series to then going and playing a full week 1. I think it's just a little. It's a big adjustment. So I would have liked to see him play a little longer, maybe go into that second or third series of the second half, get through that experience of getting into the halftime, going through your halftime routine, coming out type of thing, getting into a series or two type of thing, and then you can maybe pull him. But they gave him a few, like two series, and then said, "Yeah, we're good." Um, but we'll see where things play out. Uh, we'll finish it up here. But what is your overall expectations here going into the season? Next week, I want to do over unders. So we'll save record predictions and stat predictions and stuff like that. But
Yep.
like, what's your general feel and confidence level for this team right now?
So overall, I expect the team to be like, I'm not expecting them to pressure the Bills for the division title. I would say anything short of being a bubble wild card team, it would be pretty disappointing. I again, won't necessarily make my projection for the record and for the season. I was reading Mike Reese. If it was either yesterday or it was late last week before I went away, and he gave his floor and his ceiling, and he had their floor at 6-11 and their ceiling at 11-6, which I kind of agreed with. That kind of feels like what the ultimate worst and best case scenario is for this team. If they have one thing going for them, it's a relatively easy schedule, at least on paper. Obviously, you don't play the games on paper, so what might be an easy schedule, could turn out to be a more difficult schedule than they had anticipated. I think the season really hinges on their first like 7 to 9 games. I really think they could, depending on how things go, through the first 9 weeks, I think you could see the Patriots win as few as 3 and as many as 7 games in the first 9 weeks of the season. Um, so I think that's really going to be what you see, because that the midpoint of the year, that's when you start to see, you know, the Bengals are in the middle of the season. You have the Ravens and the Bills coming out of the bye week. Um, so like that, weeks, I don't know what the exact weeks are. The schedule's not sitting in front of me, but like, weeks like 10 through 14 are like kind of a tricky spot for them. Maybe they get tripped up early. I know Greg Bedard had some not so great things to say about what he had seen out of training camp so far, and that Mike Vrabel historically is not good in week ones of regular seasons. But I think the first half of the season is really what's going to decide if they're, you know, a top wild card like lock for a postseason team, or if they're going to have to fight tooth and nail just to get into the playoffs, and finish with a winning record. But that's kind of what I'm looking for is a team that's solidly in the wild card hunt. Whether they win the first round of the playoffs or not, you know, that's way too far away. Obviously that's just kind of icing on the cake, I think, at this point. Um, but I think that, fighting for a playoff spot, into December and playing meaningful games in the winter months is really imperative for the development of the roster.
Yeah, I don't. I really just don't know what to expect, and I think it's almost fear of like getting overly excited because you look at this team and you say, okay, they added a lot of talent. You have a coach that you believe in. You have a quarterback that you believe in. They have an easy schedule. Everything lines up for this team to make a huge jump win wise, which huge jump win wise doesn't necessarily mean a lot because if they add 4 wins, that's still a losing record. But you look at this and say, okay, they're in a position where they could be a pretty good football team. Uh, but we've kind of leaned towards that over the last 4 or 5 years, and they've failed us every year. Um, and so I'm trying not to get overly excited, but I look at it and say, they should be a good football team. They should be a competitive football team with their schedule. They have, plain and simple, they're the favorite in 11 of the 17 games, right? that tells us, odds wise at least, that they should win 11 games. Will they? I don't think so. I'm still sitting there at 9 wins. That's what my gut says.
Hey,
Uh,
thought we were doing record predictions next week.
yeah, that's my bad.
Fire.
But like, so I'm still sitting there as a middling team, but I'm just trying not to get overly excited and keep my expectations tamed. I got good expectations for Drake May. I really want to see him take this next step. Early on, I just really want to see a team that's competitive. I'm a little worried that McDaniels is going to be overly cautious with May early into the season, and it's going to cost them a game or two. But we'll see. The one thing that I think we can go into, which we couldn't last year, is we know this team will be ready to play every week, right? Whether it's intensity, game prep, uh, offensively and defensively, they'll be ready to play. Intensity, all that. One comment that Drake made the other day to, I forget who it was. He said that basically, other than the play call, Alex Van Pelt very rarely talked to him in the headset, which was very very wild to me. In that McDaniels is always talking to him up until that 15-second mark. And so I think McDaniels is going to be very good change for him. Again, I'm a little worried that he's going to be a little too conservative with May early on into the season until they really start to find their comfort with each other. But I guess we'll see. They obviously have a relatively easy schedule to open up the season. The Las Vegas Raiders is a mediocre football team, to say the least.
I mean,
Um,
the Patriots are also a mediocre football team.
yes, no, I know. I'm just saying, at home, mediocre team. Like the
So
Patriots are
here's
a more talented team than the Las Vegas Raiders.
and here's the interesting part is it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if the Patriots lose that game.
No, I
And
mean,
here's and for the sole reason that in Mike Vrabel, I'd have to look back at the record. I think in 6 or 7 years as head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel lost 2/3 of his week 1 games.
I think
He
he's
was
like
like
2-4
he
or
was
something like that in week one.
2-4, 2-5 in week 1 at Tennessee. So like that's I think a little bit of a cause for concern, especially because the Raiders have a good coach, a decent quarterback. Um, I mean, a talented running back, albeit unproven. And they've got decent guys on offense. Um, that I don't think they have much in the way of a defense outside of Max Crosby.
I think they're going to struggle tremendously to move the ball. I think offensively.
But
Um,
you've got Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, who are obviously Brock Bowers set rookie records last year. He'll be tough to cover. They have the rookie out of TCU who should be pretty decent. I just
he
think
might
it's
not even.
like I just
He's
think
not even getting a ton of run. It seems early. He might not even be a starter for
I mean
them.
no, but starter in the NFL, whatever. But like I think it's going to be as awful as this is going to say, I think the Patriots' ability to win this game is going to be their ability to take advantage of the Raiders' weaknesses on defense. Because if the Patriots can't put things together offensively, I don't think like the Raiders aren't bad enough offensively for the Patriots to win, 17-13. Like I think the Patriots are going to need to score points in that game and take advantage of the Raiders. They basically have
No,
one
I don't
top
necessarily think the
defensive player.
Patriots. I don't think they're necessarily going to be like just shut them down and they're not going to score any points on the pass. But I look at the Patriots defense and I say, they're. It'll be interesting to see how they attack it, right?
Yeah.
How do they approach Brock Bowers? I don't know who they put on him. I'm do you put a guy like Christian Gonzalez on him? Like, is he too small for a guy like Brock Bowers? It may be, but like he's also just your clear cut best coverage guy. We kind of saw that they used to put Gilmore a little bit on Kelsey type of thing. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, Gonzo's physical enough that I think that if they and he's big enough, right? Gonzo's what, 6'1", 6'2"?
How big's Carlton Davis?
He's pretty big. So just because I have it in front of me, so Bowers is 6'4", 235. That's his listed weight. Um, I'm gonna
Carlton
bring up
Davis is 6'1", 205.
Christian Gonzalez is listed at 6'1", 205. So, they're both big enough that I think that if you had, you know, if they were, I don't want to say like a help defense, but if you had them in coverage coupled with, you know, a Craig Woodson, some kind of, I don't know, I'd have to really look. I don't think they really have a true coverage style linebacker. But I think that if you shaded with those two guys, with two guys, obviously with one of those corners, like you might be okay. So defensively that might be good, and then their ability to keep Ashton Genty in check. He's good enough. Um, the Raiders don't exactly have the greatest offensive line known to man. It's not awful, but it's not like they don't have an elite.
Yeah. Well, I look at the
Um,
receiving core, and it's like if they can stop, like if you put Gonzalez on Bowers and he's able to like limit Bowers, like the rest of the receiving core isn't exactly scary. Like
yeah, they're like the receivers
Jacoby
aren't going.
Myers,
He's not going
Jacoby
to.
Myers
Myers isn't
is
going to beat you,
solid.
but he's not going to
He's a
beat you.
solid guy, but no one else on that team is any bit scary. So they can match up pretty well against them. I could see Vegas putting up maybe 16 to 17 points max type of thing. Like maybe they put up 20, something like that. This should be a game where I think the Patriots should win 23-16, 21-16, something like that. They should take care of business, but obviously, like you said, the Patriots the offense needs to take care of business. They can't be a team that relies on winning 17-13 every week.
No. But yeah.
Yeah. But all right, we'll leave it at that. I did want to get a little bit into Red Sox, but they do have what is arguably the biggest Red Sox Yankee series I think in at least a few years. I believe they're a game back or something like that in the wild card,
Yep.
going into a
They're
4-game series.
They both have 68 wins, but the Sox are 2 back in the loss column for a one game for trailing for one game. So the Yankees do play today. So that'll either dictate whether they are a game and a half back or a half a game back. But yeah, huge series in the Bronx. The Sox are struggling. They've lost 3 in a row. Last night was incredibly brutal. They loaded the bases in 3 consecutive innings, including, I believe, at least one of the extra innings. Adam Eaton continues to prove that he is just wildly overmatched mentally for the professional game, because I don't know how on earth you don't tag up from center field with, trailing by a run in the 11th inning. Especially considering the fact that the throw was way too long and about 30 feet up the line. Like he could have walked home at that point. But yeah, huge series for them. They're still half a game up in the wild card. So they are. If the season were to end today, so the Yankees have the number 1 wild card, the Red Sox are second. They're half a game up on Seattle. But they're only 2 up on Kansas City, and they're only 2.5 up on the Guardians. The Guardians are currently playing. The Royals have not yet started tonight. So that could be a game and a half and 2 games. That could be, any combination of that. So, after a 4-game series, so it's 4 games, so they go into Monday.
Yes.
So,
No.
So it's
Thursday,
a 3-game.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
I'm sorry, my days are off. Yeah. So 4-game series, and then they got 4 more at Baltimore.
49ers wide receiver has been suspended. Demarcus Robinson has been suspended 3 games for the substance abuse policy.
Gotcha. So I mean, so their next 8 games are pretty tough. They just lost 2 games to Baltimore, and then they have obviously 4 at New York, 4 at Baltimore before the Pirates come to town. After this 4-game set with the Yankees, like the Red Sox could be 2 games out of a wild card spot. At one point they were like 3 or 4 games up. If we look back as of Sunday the 17th, the Red Sox had a 4-game lead in the wild card, and they were tied with the Mariners. They had a half a game lead on the Yankees for that 3rd spot. So things are really starting to tighten up for them. Big series. So this, I mean, more or less going into September, this 4-game series with the Yankees is either going to springboard them, or very well could be the start of the downfall, where, like typical Red Sox seasons, they break your hearts in September. Because September is not going to be easy. 3 against
No, they do have
D-backs.
they do have a rather easier schedule.
I mean, not really.
I mean,
So,
they had the 24th strength of schedule or something as of like last week. The rest of the way.
So the remaining schedule, they have 3 against the Guardians, who are 2.5 back in the wild card of them. Then they have at the Diamondbacks. I don't have the standings for me. They're not very good.
Diamondbacks have sucked this year.
So they are, not good. But they're basically you, but on the other side of 500. Then they have a total. The nice thing, and this is very good for the Red Sox, they have all 6 of their games against the homeless Athletics are in September. They have a 3-game series on the 8th, 9th, and 10th, and then the Athletics come to Boston the 16th, 17th, and 18th. The 17th, shout out Section 10 will be Section 10 night. You will see yours truly there, God willing. So you've got 6 against them, but then down the stretch, it's rough. So after that first A series, it's 3 with the Yankees. Then you have the A series. Then it's 3 at Tampa.
You're missing a Pirate series.
Well, the Pirates, they do not play the Pirates in September, so I am not missing a Pirate series.
They play the Pirates at the end of August.
But they do not play them in September, which is what I'm talking about.
Yes, but we're talking about the rest of the season.
I'm talking about September. So, in any case, so you've got the Rays, who are, whatever. But then, so you've got Yankees, A's, Rays, and then you finish with at Toronto and then home against the Tigers. So, I would say it's pretty lopsided in both directions. You either have like borderline gauntlet games, and then you have games against teams that you should beat. Not and only one of them should really be competitive, and that's the Guardians. You have, to your point, you've got the Pirates the last weekend in August. The Red Sox should absolutely take 2 out of 3. And then you've got the Guardians. That's a competitive wild card series. But then you've got the D-backs, and you've got 9 games against the D-backs and A's. You should win 6 or 7 at a minimum. But then the rest of it is not that is hard. You have, Yankees, Jays, and Tigers. I guess you can just hope that come the end of the season that Toronto and Detroit have both wrapped up the division championships and are no longer playing for anything, and you just run into a team that's benched all their starters and doesn't care because they've locked into playoff spots and they have no incentive to win. That's what you have to hope for in September.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, they play some good teams. They also they got 3
some shit teams.
3 series against the 2 of the worst teams in baseball. So that right there is.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I thought it was like lopsided. You either have the garbage bottom dwelling teams of the MLB, or you have like really hard games. It's not like it's weird. It's you got peaks and
I mean,
valleys depending
I
on.
wouldn't say so because like they got like you said, like they got a Toronto series, they got a Guardian series.
Well, Toronto's
Um,
winning the American League East. How is that not a gauntlet
not
game?
Toronto. They got excuse me, they got a Tampa series,
Oh
they got
yeah,
a Guardian series. They're both like decent teams. Um, but like I said, like you got I assume both a 3-game series against the Athletics.
yeah. 3 there, 3 here.
And I think
Or
it's a 4-game series versus Pittsburgh. So that's 10 games against what I believe is
the Pirates is a 3-game series.
3-game series. All right, so that's nine. That's 9 games against the fourth and fifth worst team in baseball. Tampa is like the 10th worst team. Arizona is like the 12th worst team, and Guardians is is the middle of the pack. And so, you know, as a whole, I think it's like a below average. Now, when they did that, they probably included the Orioles game when I saw that, who they lost, and it might have included the Marlins series, who
Yeah.
they won 2 out of 3.
Yes.
Um,
And
and so it's probably
they should have swept, but the bullpen pissed their pants on the 17th, all because Isaiah Campbell couldn't maintain a 7-1 lead on Saturday and forced to roll this Chapman into a game that he never should have pitched in, which made him unavailable for the 17th, and the bullpen
yeah,
couldn't hold
exactly.
us. They gave up 4 runs in the 9th and
yeah. So
ruined
that
Garrett Crochet's
24th strength of schedule is probably close to like 16th, 17th, maybe 18th. But as a whole, it's a middle of the pack strength of schedule, probably maybe slightly below average. They, it's right in their hands. They're in a position where they have a couple games up on the wild card. This series against the Yankees are right in the position they got their top 3 pitchers going. Arguably, you could say top 4 pitchers going, where Dustin May has pitched pretty well the last 2 outings for them. He's going in the last game of the series, but they got Crochet, Bayo, and Giolito for the first 3 games of the series. It's in their hands, right? If you come in, you have to come away with at least a split. But if you can come away with 3-1, if you can come away 4-0, like that's a statement. You're already 5-1 against the Yanks right now in the seasons.
Yep.
You come in and you go 3-1, hell 4-0. You come in and you're 8-2 against the Yankees for the season. That's a statement. You go into the playoffs and the Yankees come in to play you in a playoff series and they're 2-8 against you, 1-9 against you. They're not going to feel confident, right? That's a big statement. If you can go to Yankee Stadium, take 3 or 4 games, maybe 4 or 4 games, and not only that, like we talked about, they're tied basically maybe a half game back or 1.5 game back of the wild card. You would then jump them in the wild card spot and be in a really good position down the stretch here to maybe take the top wild card spot.
Yeah.
And
And
who knows?
Nice, I was gonna say what's nice. So you have Giolito going in game 1. Crochet, if I'm not mistaken, gets the Saturday afternoon game. But the nice thing is away from Fenway Park this year, Giolito is a better pitcher, albeit Yankee Stadium being basically a little league park because of its short porches. 57 innings, he's got a 3.47 ERA, 22 walks, 51 strikeouts. His slash line against is significantly better away from Fenway. 211 average, 288 on base, 373 slug. And so but the one downside is he gives up more home runs away from Fenway than he does at home. But overall, in a bigger slice of the pie, 7 1/3 innings more. He is statistically has been a better pitcher away from Fenway than he has at home. So hopefully he keeps that going tomorrow night. But yeah, I think I think you're feeling, and it depends on how you play in these games, but if you can come out of the Bronx with a 2-2 split and play 4 competitive baseball games and win 2 of them, I think you still have to feel good after that. Yankee Stadium is not an easy place to play in. So, we'll see, but if they can salvage a split, that would be nice. You got to win the Crochet start. He's been nails all season. And then I know Bayo and Giolito have been much better lately. I don't even know. I mean, I can't. And then maybe we'll see what Dustin May can give you. But yeah, I mean, as bad as he looked in his first start in the Red Sox uniform, his last 2 have been very good. So there's certainly some optimism, but the bullpen just, and thankfully they've gotten rid of Akala and Isaiah Campbell. So the nice part is that hopefully the bullpen can keep Aroldis Chapman out of games that he shouldn't pitch in, and that they need to and then he needs to lock things down in games that he's needed in, but hopefully needed in because the bullpen didn't force him into a game.
Yeah.
Quick prediction. I'll say the Red Sox, split with the Yankees. They'll win the Crochet start. They'll win the Giolito start. So we'll see. But if they can come back 2-2 and at
Oh, if
least.
they win the first 2 games of the series and then lose the next
Well,
2, that'd be
Crochet's not pitching Friday. He's pitching Saturday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All
Because
right.
Crochet pitched on Sunday, so he's not coming back again until Saturday. So it would be winning games 1
No,
and
it's
2.
it's 5 days rest.
I know that. No, it's 6 days. Well, he pitched on. It's 5 games. It's
Oh
not,
well, they get you're correct. They have a day off.
Yeah, so they're not playing today. So they had their 2 and 3 starters going Monday and Tuesday, and then so you've got Giolito, who pitched last night.
They get
Who
Bueller.
started? That's right, Walker Bueller.
They got Giolito and Gill tomorrow night.
Oh, the Red Sox website has Yankees as their starter as TBD. But yeah, so Giolito, Bayo, Crochet, and May in the nightcap.
So Fried has like a 5 ERA over the last 14 starts.
And when is Fried going? Is he going against Crochet on Saturday?
No, Bayo on Friday night, and then it's Crochet versus Warren on Saturday.
Yep. And then Sunday is Sunday night baseball,
which is May versus Carlos Rodon. So they got the disadvantage there. So they get, they really need.
I feel like the Red Sox do well against Carlos Rodon, or have historically. It feels like.
Let's see. I can't because they don't have the lineup set. But I'd have to look at how the plays hit against him. But you really ideally want to take 2 out of the first 3, knowing that's the matchup heading into Sunday. But
so real quick, according to StatMuse, in his career, Carlos Rodon in his history is in 11 games started. He is 4-6 with a 4.38 ERA with 72 strikeouts over a total of 63 2/3 innings.
So I mean, not that good. And
especially in hopefully I know that Rest Snyder just went on the IL, but hopefully the lefty killers can poke a few balls over the short porches at Fenway at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly not a great stat line. 4.4 is certainly not great, but all right, we'll wrap it up there. Hopefully, next week when we're back, we're talking that things went well. They at least split, but ideally took 3 or 4, 4 or 4.
Yep. We'll have reaction from the Patriots final roster cutdowns and IR candidates and
Yep. And yeah, we'll be doing an over-under show next week. I'll be throwing, assuming Zach's back, a bunch of over-unders, stat over-unders, record over-unders, and
wife over-unders.
Who ends up being right? What?
Wife over-unders?
How many wives, or things about our wives?
No, preferences on your wife over-under.
I can make a couple.
Oh. I don't think you know. Never mind.
I can add a couple in. Don't worry about it. I'll get it right.
Let's hope so.
All right. That'll be it for this week. We appreciate you all listening. Make sure to send this to friends. Tune in on Apple, Spotify, YouTube.
Your sister's ass.
Okay.
That's a shout out to Vic DiBitetto. He was like, he's like hello to all of his fans on, and he would list all the social media platforms he was on, and then at the end he would go, and your sister's ass.
I agree. Touche. Goodbye.